Hello, I'm Ashley from Paper&Twine. Some of you will know that I am a paper crafter, but this is the first video that I'm doing about yarn. And I'm going to call this my Woollypod, I think. And this is the twine part of Paper&Twine, where I talk about all things yarny and tell you a little bit about my yarn obsession. I'm a little bit nervous. I've made a few videos since I started in January, or when I restarted, but I've never really talked about yarn. So this is a new departure for me. I've said it's the twine part. Mr. Paper&Twine says it's talking about wine if you're up north. Wine. Get the wine. So yeah, it's a bit early for wine. So I'm sitting here doing a little bit of knitting. If you go back, if you're new here, and have a look at my Meet Paper&Twine video, I show a skein of yarn. I think this is by Skein Queen, and I said that I was going to start knitting a mystery knit along, my first mystery knit along, which is the Hopeful Cow. Now this was to cast on in January. I'd never done a mystery knit along before, and there were 4 clues released once every week in January. I'm going to have to put my knitting down. I can't knit and talk at the same time. And yes, I've looked on Ravelry and lots of people have completed their mystery knit along, the Hopeful Cow, but I am still way behind. I'm just about coming up to clue 4. And I've had a bit of bother with this section here, which is called Twigs, I think. And yes, I think I've done it wrong. I think there's lots of mistakes there, but you know, I'm not going to bother. These little buds here are rather nice. I like that bit. But if I was to do this again, I might just do one repeat of this and extend another part of the section of the pattern. I don't know. I'm on a nice easy beaded eyelet section, although I've left the beads out because I hadn't got any that were quite big enough at the time. I mean, I'm sure with my extensive stash of crafting goodies, I could have found some beads, but no, I decided I'd leave the beads out. So when did I start knitting? I think I was about 7, and my mum's mum attempted to teach me to knit. And I remember finding casting on quite tricky. She cast on for me. And I do remember vividly some bright white acrylic yarn and some pink metal needles. They were probably 4mm, I don't know. And I remember doing some stocking stitch, and that's all I remember really. I also have a memory, because I am quite old, I also have a memory of knitting at school, being taught to knit at school, and struggling somewhat. And I do remember going up to the teacher. Do you remember the teachers used to sit in their chair at their desk, and if you wanted help you used to go up to the teacher and there'd be a queue. You had to wait your turn in the queue, and she was saying, right, get to the end of the row. I didn't know what a row was, and I went up to her and said, can I finish now? And I remember I'd got 4 stitches left on one of the needles, and she said, yes, you can finish now. So for ages I thought a row was 4 stitches, but there you go. And then my next kind of encounter with knitting, I was a teenager, and I used to get Jackie magazine. And in fact, I've just done a coffee shop drivel, which is one of my strands on my channel, for those of you that are new to me, showing a Jackie annual that I'd stolen from my mum and dad's, from my old bedroom. And in Jackie magazine, they used to very occasionally have knitting patterns. And I remember knitting fingerless gloves, which are actually quite complicated for a beginner knitter, with all the, you know, the separate fingers and everything, or, you know, the starts of the fingers. I remember knitting those for all of my friends one Christmas in pastel coloured Sirdar yarn. I remember there was a pattern for knitted bacon and eggs, and I did that as well. Very strange, very strange. But I did knit myself a few garments, and I remember being on holiday in France. I think I was 18 because I was just about to go off to university. I was about to go to London for university. And I remember sitting, we were renting a villa with some friends. And I remember sitting on the steps of this villa in the garden doing some knitting. And one of my dad's friends was an absolutely amazing knitter. She knitted a lot of socks and Aran jumpers and things like that. And she hadn't brought any knitting. And she said, oh, let me have a go, let me have a go. And she did a couple of rows of my knitting. And then on another occasion, we were going out for dinner and she was wearing this most amazing pale blue fine cotton sweater, and it had the most amazing pattern on it. And I said, oh, where did you get your jumper from? And she said, I've knitted it. Well, I'd never seen anything like it before. And I said, oh, I'd love to knit something like that. And she said, oh, you'd never be able to do anything like this. And that was a bit of a red rag to a bull. And I'll show you what she was knitting. She knitted a pattern from a very old book, but it's old now, it wasn't old at the time, by somebody called Patricia Roberts. And she was a very well thought of designer through the 70s and the 80s and most of the 90s. She won a Duke of Edinburgh designer award as well, and some of her patterns, some of her finished garments, I think are in the V&A as examples of fashion. But I said, oh, you must tell me where you get this yarn from and the pattern. And she said, oh, it's Patricia Roberts. She's got shops in London. So my first weekend in London, I went to her shop in Covent Garden. And I bought the yarn and the pattern to make this sweater. I don't know whether you'll see very well. But it was called Scrabble. There's a cardigan, a shawl, and this sweater here. That might be a slightly better picture. And it's got lots and lots of texture. And I'd been used to knitting, double knitting, you know, just 4mm needles. So this kind of threw me a bit. You cast on 132 stitches on 2mm needles, and then you had to work 38 rows in single rib. So that was a bit of a challenge, 132 stitches, and then you increase to 148 stitches, which was, you know, a lot because it's very, very fine yarn. Anyway, I managed to do it, and I was very, very proud of this sweater, and I wore it a lot to college. And in fact, a friend asked me to knit one for her, and then she asked me to knit one for her mum. So I got to know this pattern quite well, and I have knitted it in subsequent years since. This isn't the original book I bought. God knows where that is. I think that's died a death somewhere, but this is one that I bought, I don't know, recently, probably in the 2000s, from her shop. She had a shop in Kensington, which I never went to. She had one in Knightsbridge in Kinnerton Street, which I did go to. That was a gorgeous little shop. And then she had this, it was quite a big shop in Covent Garden. It had an upstairs and a downstairs. And obviously it's not there anymore. And the downstairs, she sold really interesting clothes that came from Paris, and you could buy her knitted garments already knitted up, and a lot of the foreign visitors from places like Hong Kong would buy them. But I ended up working for Patricia Roberts in my third year at university. I got a Saturday job in the Covent Garden shop, and you had to prove that you could knit her patterns. So I took what I'd knitted. I'd knitted a couple of things of hers by then. And I tell you, working in the shop, it was amazing. I mean, it was quite a high-end shop and the yarn was, you know, quite expensive, but it was like being in a sweet shop. So you'd have knitted something and somebody would come in and knit it in different colourways. She's got a lot of, I should have brought the other book to show you. She's got a lot of intarsia stuff. I mean, that is very, very, very 80s, isn't it? I mean, I didn't ever knit that, but in some of her later books that were sort of mid 80s, there was some really, really lovely intricate patterns, and people, as I say, would come in and knit them in a different colourway to you. You think, oh, I've got to do it in that colourway. So, as I say, in my third year, I had a Saturday job with her, and I remember it was great fun. Her brother, Keith, I think his name was the business manager, and he used to come in on a Saturday. We were open till 7 o'clock, and he used to come in just before closing with a bottle of wine and some cookies from Millie's Cookies, which was in the general trading store, which was a big shop on the corner by the tube station in Covent Garden. And I think the last time I was in Covent Garden, it was in Marks and Spencer's. I don't know whether it still is, but great fond memories of working there. And when I graduated, I hadn't got a job to go to, so they took me on full time, and I worked in the shop a bit, and then I ended up working at her head office in West Kensington as an assistant stock controller, and that was a very interesting job. But it was a long way to travel, and the pay wasn't very good. I mean, I was living out in Winchmore Hill way of North London, and it was, you know, the journey on the tube was nearly all the way on the Piccadilly line. It was a long journey. So yeah, I quit there kind of a few months after I'd done the stock controller bit, but that really fired me up with my love of knitting, and I did a little bit of designing. And the great thing about working in the warehouse, the head office, was that you could buy scraps of yarn that you couldn't in the shop. This is if you worked there. And of course, she'd got a lot of people that were out workers that knit up her garments for people to buy already knitted. And they had to send back all of the yarn that was unused from anything that they'd been commissioned to make. And so I used to buy all the little scraps of Angora, and I made a lovely jumper, and I wish I'd still got it. It was in a dark blue lamb's wool, and then all the different colours were different colours of blues and greys Angora. Oh, I do wish I'd still got that. I mean, a very dated style, but there's a lot of work went into it. And of course, Angora is very difficult to get hold of these days, isn't it? So yeah, I got my love of knitting from both of my grandmas, really. When I was 15 and I started doing the Jackie magazine knitting, my other grandma, my dad's mum, was living with us, and she was a great knitter, and she helped me out a bit. I do remember actually once sitting knitting with her in her lounge watching telly, and I was just knitting a garter stitch scarf or something, and I was getting in a right mess, and she'd say, "Are you all right?" And I'd go, "Yeah." There'd be this great big hole in the middle, and then it would be all jagged edges where I'd kind of increased by doing yarn overs and things. Oh dear, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But I think I'm an experienced enough knitter that I can read my knitting, and I know when I've made mistakes. I don't know about on this, because I don't know what the pattern's supposed to be like, and I kept getting odd stitches, so I know that that's not right, but you see, I think that little bit there is correct, but I'll just go with it. I'll just go with it. So I haven't done a lot of knitting because my paper obsession has taken over a little bit, but my last finished garment is this, and it's a jumper. You're not going to be able to see it all, and it's a Louisa Harding pattern called Three Arches or Trey Arches or something, and I used some Rico Essentials yarn that I'd bought quite a long time ago. I'd bought enough yarn to knit a blanket for my eldest daughter for when she went to university, and I started knitting it, and then I couldn't find the rest of the yarn. so I stopped knitting it. And this is me, I'm a serial starter. I've got, you know, I've got things that are half finished, 3/4 finished, and I've put them down and I don't know where I am with them. I've got a lovely Rowan shrug that I'm knitting in Kid Silk Haze, in a really delicate colour of Kid Silk Haze. And I've knitted the two front bits and the back, but I've forgotten what size I've done it in. So I've got the sleeves to do and I don't know what size I've done it in. So that's sitting somewhere till I figure it out. But yeah, I did finish this. And it's got the lovely detail on the bottom. I get bored with stocking stitch, so I need a bit of texture. I think what I would like to do and learn to do is Fair Isle. I'd love to learn to do Fair Isle, but my tension isn't very good. I'm okay at texture. Look at that sleeve there, that's lovely. But I don't know what it is about this yarn. It's really, really pilling. And if any of you are knitters that are watching this, perhaps you could give me some advice on what to do about this. I mean, I've only worn this jumper twice since I've knitted it, and it's already showing, you know, that pilling. It's nice and warm and it's very heavy, and we're in April now, and I wouldn't be thinking of wearing a big jumper, but might need to get the jumpers out. It's a bit of a change in weather from last weekend, isn't it? So yeah, my poor daughter that went away to university, I mean, she's 23 now. She never got a blanket because I lost the yarn. I do like knitting small things, and I've knitted a lot of teddy bears in my time, and I used to sell them at craft fairs, and I named them after detectives. So this one is made out of some silk tweed, Rowan silk tweed, that I had left over from another project. I never throw any of my yarn away. I keep all my little bits. And this one is called Starsky, and he's jointed, his arms and legs move, but he's quite light. I've only got these two bears left. I did make quite a lot and sold quite a lot at craft fairs, as I say. And this one, he's got steel shot in his belly. Again, he's jointed. And this one is called Wexford. And this is felted tweed, Rowan felted tweed, again left over from another project. That's a little bit of sock yarn for his scarf. But he's got quite a grumpy face, hasn't he? So yes, I like small things, and I think I'm going to start knitting little bears again. And get them on my Etsy shop. I do have an Etsy shop for anybody that's interested. I haven't got any knitting on there at the moment. It is cards and a little bit of jewellery. I am a serial crafter, for those of you that are new to me. And I don't tend to do much knitting when I'm watching telly, because we've got a projector screen, and we tend to sit in quite a darkened living room when we're watching telly, so it can be a bit dark to knit if I'm doing something that's complicated. If it's just garter stitch or stocking stitch, then that's fine, but I do tend to, at the moment, I've got out of the habit of knitting when I'm watching telly. Oh, it's a nice cup of coffee. I need that today. So what else can I show you? Oh yes, I am on Ravelry. I'm not very active there. I do like to peruse, and I have got 682 patterns in my wish list in my Ravelry library. There's a theme going on. It's you probably can't see this very well, but there's toys and cowls and a few socks. I'm a virgin sock knitter, or vanilla sock. I can do a plain sock. I've never done a fancy sock. That's something I need to do. But everything I like is grey, stripes. I like the Japanese shapes of things. I like things with a little bit of Fair Isle, but I'm not very good at Fair Isle, as I say. I have just put something in my queue to do next, but you see, I like this. I don't know whether you can see that reflection from two screens on two screens, but I really like that. And that'll be backwards for you as well, probably. I have just put a little cowl in my queue to do with a skein of red sock yarn. If you go back and you're new to me, if you don't know me, and if you are new here, welcome. In my Meet Paper and Twine video, which was when I kind of launched my channel properly on the 2nd of January, I show a Christmas Eve box that I'd bought from Yarnworks, and it had got a skein of Emma's Perfectly Practical Sock, I think it is, or Practically Perfect Sock, and it's bright red, and I don't think I'm going to knit socks with it. I'm either going to do a shawl or a cowl, and I did find a lovely little pattern. Can't find it now. Oh, that's nice. Lemon tea and scones or something, I think it was called. Can't find it now. Perhaps it's moved because I've put it in my queue. Perhaps it's moved from my library. No, I could happily, I can't find it. I could happily spend hours and hours on Ravelry. It's a time waster, isn't it? But I'm not very active in the community there, and perhaps I need to, because I would like to publish a couple of patterns that I've devised. But the last thing I'm going to show you now before I crack on with a little bit of knitting, I ordered from Elderflower Stitches an Easter box, and I've had a bit of a saga with this. The address was incorrect on Etsy. The house number was missing, and it could have been my mistake, it could have been Etsy's mistake. And the lovely Susie sent it out, and obviously I never received it because it was undeliverable because it hadn't got a number on. And then she sent another one out and tracked, and then that got returned to sender because of the address. And then we found out that the address was incorrect. But this loveliness of an Easter box arrived yesterday, and I've just opened it, but I haven't looked inside. And that's what it looks like inside. So let's see what we've got. Little note here. Beautiful. I love her little logo. Oh, that's useful. It's got all the care instructions. Aftercare and washing instructions, which is good. And just a little note about the order. And then, oh, I shall save all the tissue paper for things that I send out. Shall we have a look at the little bags first? I've got 2 little bags with Elderflower Stitches stickers. I need to get Paper and Twine stickers for my Etsy store, and I've started to design a logo because I want to do a rubber stamp as well for the backs of my cards. Oh, but oh look, that is so adorable. A little set of stitch markers. Look at the little bunny. That is absolutely adorable. And you've got like the little pastel colours that, are for Easter. And the little pom-pom. That is gorgeous. Let's see I think this might be chocolate. Let's have a look and see. It is. It's chocolate. I'm going to have another cup of coffee when I've got off here and eat my little Malteser bunny. But let's have a look at the gorgeousness that is from Elderflower Stitches, and this is a seasonal treat box, Easter 2021. I have been very, well, no, not naughty, because I haven't bought any yarn for a long time. I used to buy yarn an awful lot, and I have stopped, but I have got on the waiting list, and I've pre-ordered Susie's Elderflower Stitches Advent box, and I've also pre-ordered Sherry Iris's Advent box as well. So that's my Vlogmas sorted. I've got 2 skeins here. Let's see what we've got. This looks like a full skein. Sorry for any rustling. Oh, look. Suffolk Fields on Super Sock. 75% SW merino and 25% nylon. We've got 425 meters per 100 grams. Look at the colours in that, all kinds of ice creamy, pastel-y, Easter egg, Cadbury's mini eggs kind of colours going on there. And that is so soft. That is beautiful. It was well worth waiting for. Let's see what's in this. Her yarn does sell out very, very quickly. Oh, this is what I thought I was getting, but I've got that as well. I wonder if she sent that as an extra because things got lost in the post. I don't know. But I think this is what I thought I'd ordered, is the 5 mini skeins in these gorgeous, gorgeous pastel-y colours. And they are going to be used. I don't know. I might do some kind of fade project. There's 85 meters per 20 gram skein. So I've got 100 grams there, so that's 400 meters, isn't it? I might do some kind of fade project, but I'm thinking any leftovers would be lovely for little bears. Or I could have a go at designing a little baby rabbit. Little rabbits would be nice, wouldn't they, with little ears? Yeah, that's lovely. Well, I am going to do a Woollypod once a month. So the next one of these will be in 4 weeks' time. And we'll see if I have finished my hopeful cowl and if I've cast on another project or not. I know that for a lot of you that are paper crafters, this is not your bag, but I do hope you'll stick with me. And if you're new here, you're very welcome. Thanks very much for watching. Bye now.